Nervous. All right, live. We are live. So here we are starting a show and we have no idea what it is. And so instead of figuring it out, we decided to go ahead and just figure it out live in front of our huge audience of you and me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, at least so far we have a very faithful crowd.
That's true. That's true. We've got some advocates in the room.
Yeah.
So that being said, since we talked last week, I had a couple thoughts. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Mine are, for some reason, I just keep this this global entrepreneur thing, whatever we want to call it, but bringing in people, because I've seen a couple Google Hangouts that were pretty cool, and they had like 3 or 4 people on them, and they had a facilitator. But it would be interesting to see how it would work to have some type of roundtable or something, but pick some big cities, at least a city from each continent, and have different entrepreneurs join in and just have a open dialogue about global entrepreneurship. I think that would be really cool. That may be the whole show, or that may be a segment of a show. But I think that would just naturally attract some people to see that kind of stuff.
I think it would too. By the way, we're on live also on Periscope. For those who are on Periscope and Twitter, we're on a Google Hangout right now. Brian Noel and myself. I'm in Copenhagen. He is in Atlanta, Georgia. And so there's his smiling face. And so you're welcome to join as well if you're on Google Plus. And I think you look for myself, Jack Fussell, or Brian Noel, and do something and follow us and join the conversation.
I wonder if I should be on Periscope too.
All the cool guys are doing it.
I know.
Well, the one cool guy I know. I think you're actually the only cool guy I know.
I don't know about that.
All right, so there we go.
I'm going to say live on Google Hangouts with Copenhagen. That's fun.
Let's see. I don't want to stop the broadcast. There we go.
And if I could position the iPhone to...
That's what I just figured out.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You figured out.
I mean, what's cool about technology is now we can talk to ourselves and we look intelligent doing so.
No. It's whatever we can do to help us look intelligent, right?
Exactly.
So on Periscope, I am on a Google Hangouts with Jack Fussell from Copenhagen, and we are on air. If you're on Google Plus, you can look me up at Brian J. Noel. You can look up Jack Fussell. Is it Jack Fussell? Just Jack Fussell?
Yes.
Jack Fussell. He's also on Periscope as well. We are doing our first live broadcast on Google Hangouts. We'd love to do a weekly show for different entrepreneurs to join in, and we're trying to figure out what would be good. There's a lot of content out there, so we're in a discovery phase, and instead of figuring it out, we're just going to go ahead and figure it out live. So that's what we're doing. So this is a brainstorm. It might be very boring, but this is a brainstorm on what this show could be. So if you aren't into brainstorming, then you just might as well leave, because this is going to be pretty lame. All
exactly.
Right. So yeah, so inviting entrepreneurs from different cities. I figured we could reach out to them on Twitter and LinkedIn, just look at their profiles and say, hey, would you like to join us? And then another thing I thought was, I think this would be a great podcast too. It's funny now that, like, you know, everyone's doing everything live. It's like, what do I share and what do I not share? Because that's an idea that if someone takes it, you know, but at the end of the day, I've got like a million ideas, and I'm not going to do, you know, after your interview, I'm not going to do a lot of them. So if someone else does it, that's okay. But a business book review and invite the authors in. So I know it's kind of nerdy, but almost a book club, but reach out to the author on Twitter and say, hey, would you join us? We're going through a couple of the principles in your book. Will you join us and talk about, you know, how you arrived at those principles and how difficult it was to write this book? And because I think all of us aspire to maybe write a book one day. I know I do. So it'd be pretty cool to to invite some authors into the conversation. And I don't know if that'd be a segment, which would be pretty cool. We could invite authors from all over the world too. But those are a couple ideas that I think would be good content to bring people into. I'm taking notes, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would love to, I immediately think of like John Acuff, who actually has been easily very approachable on Twitter.
Oh, yeah?
So I got his books the other day. I ordered all 3 of the most recent, and I wrote him just on Twitter real fast saying, hey, I got your books in Copenhagen. He's like, dude, post a picture. So I posted a picture with the rooftops behind me, and he put it on Instagram.
Nice.
And I was getting followers that knew me, but they knew John Acuff. They were actually following him on Instagram and stuff. And they're like, oh my gosh, and this is amazing. Like, I was like, there's Jack. I haven't seen Jack in years, and there he is. So I think guys like him that are highly approachable, and I would love to sit and talk about their book and ask them why and what led to it, or the stuff that you don't get off a back cover, or review it with them, or have people ask them questions or whatever. I think it'd be brilliant. And I'm like you, I want to write a book one day, so it'd be also kind of selfish just to figure out how it works.
Yeah. Well, and you have the advantage, right? Because you're in Copenhagen, so you're like the cool kid at the table. So if we have you, since you know how it is on social media, right? We're not good-looking girls, so we don't attract all of the people that are scouring the internet looking for hot women. So that's
what we need to join the group.
I know. We're just some normal white dudes, so some nerds trying to figure this out.
Yeah, we're not like laying in bed right now. We're not scantily clad, so it's harder. That's why I have 1 follower on Periscope. If this was like, some hot 22-year-old, there'd be 400 followers.
I know. Maybe we should. I wonder if we did our next interview. No, I'm not even. No, we shouldn't even. Never mind. Not even gonna try that. I was gonna say like glossy up our skin and go lay out in the sun or something. But I don't.
We could go all Bruce Jenner, but that's
Yeah. So that would be pretty cool, since John Acuff actually responded to you, if our first author interview was actually John Acuff.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
So let's do that. You said you just got 3 of his books. Which one should I get? I'll just read it here in the next week, and then we'll reach out to him on Twitter and just say, hey man, we've got this major hangout. It's incredible. You totally need to join. We'll actually probably say, hey, this is like probably the smallest thing you've done this year, but will you come hang out with our hangout?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know which one. I haven't read them yet. I just got them like last Thursday. But Do Over is the last one.
Oh, yeah.
Promoting. So I think if we hit the one that he's promoting right now,
that's a good idea.
Then he'll buy into that. Especially if you say everyone in the hangout is buying your book.
It's true. We have a lot of advantages to only having 2 people here.
There are a lot of advantages.
Everyone in the group is buying your book and reading it.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. So let's do that. Let's say we've got to hang out and just see if he comes into the interview, and then let's just straight up tell him we're only 2 people trying to start something, and then see his reaction. But it's live, so
he can't walk away. I mean, he can. All he's got to say is, sorry, you're breaking up. And
that's true. That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, we got this curtain.
All right, so that's a cool idea. So pulling in authors, and what would be interesting is these guys are on podcasts and interviews all day long. That's how they promote it. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of angle we could have, or how we could approach it a little different, to where if people land on our hangout, they're getting a little bit different of an interview than they're going to hear John Acuff on all the other podcasts and networks and blog posts and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think about that? What are some fun things or some different things we can ask him or interact with him, so we can pull in an audience that's not hearing the same thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really good question. Because I know normally it's talk about your book,
Mm-hmm.
Or normally, if like I just heard him the other day on the Relaunch podcast, and I mean, I love those guys, and they're great podcasts, but they ask them the same exact questions every single time, every person they interview, which is great because they're going to answer those. But it's primarily, tell us about your biggest relaunch, tell us about the biggest thing you've done, and tell us about your book. So what's the angle with him? Maybe it's not the book. Maybe it's you're the author of the book, but maybe we're not going to talk about the book.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're going to talk about him. What advice does he give to people, that are trying new things or starting up or whatever? I mean, maybe we're just leveraging the book as his expertise, as his platform. But I don't know. Even with that, I don't know. It's a good question. What would I want to know from him?
Yeah, like I would love.
If you had 20 minutes with Jon Acuff, what would you want to know from him?
Man, when I hang out with people, I want to know how they interact with their family, what their family's like, what their family's doing. I love just hearing about how, because you're hanging out in these networking meetings, and it's all about your book and your app and just all this stuff. So it's just fun to be the person that's like, so man, tell me about your family, tell me about your kids, tell me about your wife, what's going on in their life, and how have you taken your platform and equipped your family to accomplish their dreams, and where have you lived? I think that plays into some of your passion. And what city did you move? I mean, someone like that can live in any city in the country or world, right? Mm-hmm. So why have they settled down where they have, and what benefit has that had? That's always fun. So family, location.
I want to know from people, usually it's, hey, I'm being interviewed. I developed my first app last year. I made $6 million in 12 days. Yeah. There's a certain guy I listen to, he's like, I listened to him the other day and he's like, yeah, I don't work any more than about 12 hours a week. And, I just saw him on Forbes and he's, made 12 million last year. And I'm like, how do I go from 60 hours a week, barely making it, to 12 hours a week and making, 20 million a year? So my question I'd like to ask guys like him is, tell me about the last time you were afraid.
That's a great question.
Tell me, and how'd you get through it? Because we like to focus, and we can all read, Jon Acuff, for example, we can read a million things about how the great things he's done, but I want to know, like you said, I want to know how he deals with family, because that's what you and I are constantly struggling with, balancing family and being an entrepreneur, the hours that it takes, the sacrifices that it takes. How do you walk out of your office, shut the door, and play Legos when your mind is, building new businesses, or you're having these thoughts? How do you process that? And then what do you do when you're terrified? What do you do when you look at that idea and you don't know if you're going to make it? You don't know if anybody's going to show up, because I would say that's what most of us deal with more than we deal with, what do I spend my $20 million on this week? I can fix that one pretty quick. So
I love that. When's the last time you were afraid? Man, that's a great question. Oh my gosh. I can't wait that makes me want to interview these people so I can ask them and see what their answer is going to be. That's awesome. So tell me the last time you were afraid. And then, we all, or many of us have read the book Tipping Point. And if we haven't read it, we've used the term quite a bit. And it would be interesting for those looking back, what do you feel like your tipping point was? And what do you feel like those ingredients were at the time?
Yeah, that's a good one too. That's a really good one.
Your tipping point. Let's see. I wonder what else. Be interesting. And they're always being asked to promote themselves. So it would be interesting, I think, to ask them, who do they want to promote? So who do you know that's doing something really cool that they're starting and they need some promotion? So it'd be really cool to hear that from them. Of course, that question's asked a lot, like, who do you admire? But I like the who do you know that hasn't made it yet, but you'd love to promote?
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. And we'll give them top billing if they say us.
That's right. Yeah.
Although they'll only be saying it to the two of us. So.
Yeah. So it'll make us feel good. We'll give us some validation.
It'll be the greatest conversation no one ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I love hearing about the habits outside of, what you typically hear from these types, right? It's like, I've read the top 5 books, I read the top 5 podcasts, I subscribe to the top 5 magazines, but I love reading, like, when people say, what are their favorite fiction books, or what are their favorite biographies? Who from history do they admire the most? I love asking those kind of questions, as opposed to, hearing the top 5, CEOs of today, but getting some good nuggets of wisdom from that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Even though I don't read fiction that much, but fiction. All right. Well, I think that would probably be a pretty good interview if we asked all those questions. And then always the great question of, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's always a good one, because especially if they can keep it to like one thing. Like, what's your one thing?
Mm-hmm. Fiction, characters in history. All right, so potentially two segments here. This global theme and authors. What else?
Let's see. What else could we talk about? Well, I mean, I think sometimes we yeah, I mean, I just think the whole thing, I think even what we're asking the authors is kind of indicative of what we want to talk about, because I think so many of these podcasts are literally just, they're so big. Like here's an example, and I'm not going to use the guy's name, but I heard this guy on a podcast recently who said, I walked away from my full-time job and I launched on my side business and blah, blah, blah. And he made it just sound so perfect. And there were a lot of things in his story that really interested me. So I wrote him and just said, hey, can I share a little bit of my story and get your feedback? And I wrote him, and he said, sure. So I wrote him an email. He wrote me back this morning, and we'll come to find out he is still doing his full-time job. He's just doing it like 30 hours a week.
Oh.
And so the way he made it sound on the podcast was he'd walked away from his 40-hour week of job, went full-time into this side job, and was making it all work. And then in the email admits, no, actually I'm doing 25 to 30 hours on my full-time job, and now doing the side. I'm up to like 20 hours a week on the side job. And I'm like, but in your podcast, you were like Steve Jobs. Like, you went from, you're wearing a black turtleneck and, blowing your nose with millions, but you're actually not. And so I think a lot of it's that. So I think it sometimes is talking about what it really is like to be an entrepreneur, because we are a strange people. My wife she knows if I'm alone for more than 20 seconds, she's going to hear the phrase, hey, I have this idea. And sometimes it's even, we're playing with the kids and we're building a Lego house, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the most amazing idea. So I think sometimes it's just talking about, how do you do this stuff? And then how do you deal with the fear? How do you deal with the failure? I'd love to ask some of these guys that have made it, tell me about your most recent failure.
That's a good one.
Either it's the market's fault, you misread it, or you backed off, or, you chickened out, you pivoted the wrong direction, whatever. Again, I think so many times we focus on the 1% of what happens in someone's lives, but there's this whole other big story that's going on that we don't really talk about. And most of us live in that bigger story most of our days. And so it's trying to figure out how, it's establishing that, yes, you're not alone in this. And more of us are trying to make it than those of us who've actually made it. So, but maybe that's just from where I am today in my life stage.
No, I love that. Your most recent failure and what's your greatest fear? And I mean, that's absolutely true. We idolize the very small percent and aspiring to be whatever our view of success is. And we begin to believe that, whatever we view that they have that looks successful, right? Fame or money or a platform or whatever it is. It's like we pretty much, the rest of us are here, but we feel like we're not successful unless we're there,
Right.
So then that leads to what would be pretty cool is let's interview some just amazing underdogs.
Yeah. That's true.
Amazing everyone wants the underdog to win.
Yeah, I think it's about celebrating movement. Movement's what should be celebrated. We have a tendency to only celebrate when they've crossed that finish line, or whatever that metaphor would be. But it's those who are moving towards it that I want to be the cheerleader for that group. Because there's a lot of people moving, and they're trying to establish momentum. They're at least brave enough to get up out of their chair and try something, or they're brave enough to dream in their cubicle about a different life, or try something or whatever. And so to me, it's about really, how do you become a fan of the movement, and begin to, and it's what you and I talked about in our interview, which is, how do you put yourself into a new narrative where you're with other people that are creating movement, that are going after things, and it's celebrating the commonalities that you're facing as you're doing that. But I think the majority of what's out there celebrates when the movement's happened and it's already, they've climbed the mountain, they've crossed the finish line, whatever you want to say. But there's a lot of guys that are trying things, and they're not there yet. They're just they've just put their toes in the ocean for the first time, but they're ready to jump in. And then some of us are swimming, and some are sinking, and the sharks are circling a few. And so instead of just celebrating the ones that have climbed up on the island on the other side, let's figure out how to actually celebrate those that are swimming, that are trying, that are going for it. So
that would be a great cartoon art, right? So you got like the yacht up ahead, like way up ahead.
Yeah.
The guy just sitting on the yacht drinking his cocktail, and then you've got this group of entrepreneurs over here with the sharks circling them. Over here that's just straight up drowning. But everyone, and then potentially you have the spectators, right? And they're just all looking at the one on the yacht.
Yeah. And they're missing all these others.
Yeah, they're missing it. And what's funny is how boring is it just to watch the dude drinking the cocktail on the yacht?
Yeah, Mr. Howell out there.
Yeah, the sports and the battlefield, the gladiators, right? The fight. So maybe that's it. We love watching a good fight. So if we could somehow capture the drama and the battle, the sweat and the tears, and just truly somehow, not just out of like, oh my gosh, like sometimes you talk to people, sometimes I feel like I'm just like, I just need to lay down, right? I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm sad, or I'm tired, or I'm pissed, right? But if we could somehow translate that into like a battlefield and present that in some way, I think that would be pretty awesome.
It could almost be, yeah, it would be funny actually. Does Dex have any of those like Where's Waldo books?
Oh yeah.
There's like 4 million things going on. It could be like, where's Waldo the entrepreneur? Like, there he is. But there's all this other junk going on that's actually a lot more intriguing.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Where's the entrepreneur? So going back to what you said about, I love the way you articulated let's celebrate those who are moving. I want to be a cheerleader for the movement. Let's celebrate movement. So one potential segment for the show could be, or series of shows, we could pick a movement, and invite those who, a few that are leaders in that movement, if we can get access to them, whatever level of access we can reach. And then, some underdogs, those who are at the starting phase and those who are at the scaling phase and those who are at the finishing stage. It would be cool to invite those to a conversation. And, like you were talking about your, I don't know if you know him, but the guy who goes in and helps cities lay out bike, what is that called?
Like bike lanes and stuff?
Yeah, bike lanes and just setting up the city. Who is that you were telling me about?
Yeah, Michael Koval-Anderson.
Mm-hmm. So you take a movement like that. So just the way we're changing our cities and redesigning our cities for young families to move back into it. And, that's a movement, and it would be cool to have some different leaders across the world to come in and just have a conversation about that and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Talk about the movement. All right.
We do have 2 followers on Periscope, by the way. So just to update for those of you who are jumping in on Periscope, you're part of the beginning of a movement. There's a handful of us gathering right now. Myself, Jack Fussell here in Copenhagen, and then Brian, which I was just showing you in Brian Noel in Atlanta, Georgia, in Hotlanta. We're 2 entrepreneurs. We're just talking about this Google Hangout thing that we're going to start doing each week, a show where we can gather and we can talk, really just, a hangout space. We can all sit, you can wear whatever you want. We're just going to hang out and chat through some things. So right now is our first kind of chat. And so we're just talking about what we're going to talk about. So if you're watching in on Periscope, this is, you get to say, I knew Oprah when. So you're and there's a few of you actually from the Nordic I see jumping in, so based on the names I'm seeing, which is cool. So yeah, hey Zach, good to see you from Norway. So my friend Zach jumping in on Periscope. You can also join Google Hangouts if you're on Google Plus. Just look for, I think it's underneath Brian's name, so it'd be Brian Noel, so BRYAN and then NOEL if you want to join the video part. Otherwise, Zach and who else is on here, I'm just going to let you guys listen to Brian and I talk, and I'll occasionally interject. But feel free to write me something on Periscope, and I'll answer it as we go along.
Yeah, let me see if I wonder if we can share the link here and get one of those guys in on the Hangout. Let me see if I can share this link. Join.
Zach, are you on Google Plus? Do you have access to Google Hangouts?
Okay, that's fine. Let me see. How do I share this? Links.
Okay. Yeah, Zach is just on his cell phone right now, so he actually can't chime in on Google Hangouts. But yeah, I don't know how. This is actually the first one I've ever done, Brian, is with you.
Do you have at the bottom right of your Google Hangouts, there's a little links?
All I have is a box that says your name.
Okay, let me message this to you, and then you can post this on your Twitter. Actually, I'll just post it on my Twitter, and then I'll @ you on it. So that way, if someone who's following you wants to join in.
Okay. Are we going to do this the same time each week? Is that the goal?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So Zach will be on, and everyone else is watching. We'll be on next week. What would be 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., whatever that is in your time zone. For me in Copenhagen, it's 2 p.m., but for Brian, it's 8 a.m. So if you want to join in next week as well, we'll be on here again for ever how long it takes.
Yeah. Join us on air.
Is the sun shining in Norway today, Zach? If you're still on there, we finally have a decent day. I think it's getting up into the low 50s. Just let me know when you're back on.
Sweet. All right, let's see. I wonder if that works. If someone can just
let me check.
Join. I don't know what's.
Oh wow.
What is this show? Be part of the conversation. Oh, cool. Okay. Wow, they can.
Good. Low 60s in Norway today. That's warmer than here. That's nice.
No, I don't know how to do.
All right, I'm looking on my Twitter right now to see. Let's see.
So, a couple of.
Me too. Definitely ready for some warm weather.
So, Jack.
Yes.
What do you think what do you think a good length is for the show? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, I think 15 to 20. Any more than that, and people have a lot to do.
Probably. You know what? If we did it in 15, that's not bad because we can do segments. So if we chop that up into 5-minute segments,
yeah,
that would be cool because then we could chop that up and then promote that. So 5-minute segments. Do a little intro. 3 5-minute segments. And then outro. That'll put us right around 15 to 20 minutes. And then we can chop those segments up and post those, promote those.
Yeah, Zach just chimed in and said, Acuff says the perfect length is 15 minutes.
Done. Let's do, then we'll.
Thank you, Zach, for that.
Yeah, then we'll work hard on, we'll do a quick intro and then probably 4-minute segments and then a quick outro and then 3 to 4-minute segments. And then that'll put us right at 15.
That's perfect. It's perfect because it allows people you can still have a meeting afterwards. You're like, you're not losing a whole hour. I could do this in my car before I walk in somewhere or whatever. So perfect.
All right, we need to figure out what's the pitch, right? So we got a theme around this idea of everyone's interviewing the successful person sitting on the yacht. I love that mental picture, by the way. I absolutely love that mental picture. I think that's perfect. But no one is, or few people report on, again, I love the scenarios too. Some of them are surfing, man. They're out there surfing the wave, right? They don't even care about the stupid yacht. They're just, you've got some who are waiting for the next wave. You've got some who are circled by sharks. You've got some who are drowning, some who are in a little tiny paddle boat, just paddling really hard, right? Limited resources. You got some who, they're in a big boat. They got tons of resources, but they're still really far from that point because, maybe they don't know what they're doing. So they're just kind of going in circles, right? They got tons of resources, but they don't know what the hell they're doing. So it's capturing the journey, celebrating movement. These are good words. Celebrating movement. This idea of the fight, the entrepreneurial fight, which is kind of cool. Everyone likes a good fight.
Definitely. Well, and the great thing about, I used to surf. I wasn't very good at it. It was girls love surfers in Florida. And so I thought, well, then why would I not surf?
Yeah.
But the thing about surfing is there's always a balance between, especially when you're out. Florida was horrible at times, but when a hurricane would get anywhere near the coast, the surf was amazing. And there's always a balance when you're in water because you have to balance. You have to go after the wave, but you've also got to maintain enough energy to be able to keep doing it. And that's the balance, especially those of us with families. that we live in is the constant, how do you balance the pursuit with also the ability to rest and take care of those who are trying to keep up with you? Because you know, as I do, you take a small kid in the water and, you know, they can't move as fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's all of that too that goes with it, is how do you balance it? How do you, you know, and some of the guys are literally standing, I think there's a ton of people standing on the shore with their ankles in the water thinking, do I actually do this? Do I actually try something? You know, even if it's just something on the side of whatever else they're doing, or a new way of looking at life, or a new way of approaching their existing business, or, you know, starting a brand within a business or a division or whatever. It's all of those things. And to me, that's where the really cool stories are, because Mr. Howell sitting up on the boat with a cocktail saying, love her, you know, I don't want that. I mean, some point, yes, that'd be nice, but I'm 43. I'm ready to surf. I'm ready to swim. So I think it's all of that.
God, that's good. I love the you're going after the next wave, but you have to ensure that you maintain energy, because you know there's going to be more waves after that. That's pretty cool. And a lot of people are on the shore. Some people are just standing there wanting to go, and some people are just sitting on the bank doing nothing, right? Drinking PBR. So, God, man. So from a pitch standpoint for the show, now if we had like a legitimate surfer on the show, that would be awesome.
That would be really cool, actually.
Because then we could what's the new technology that came out where you wear the device and then your drone follows you and captures imagery?
Oh yeah, I want one of those.
Yeah, whatever that's called. If we actually had some footage and some good a good voiceover narration of just literally explaining these different scenarios, and if we were West Coast entrepreneurs, that would be really cool too. Of course, you're on the ocean. I'm a little bit more landlocked. But yeah, so how could we pitch this show? So celebrating movement, capturing the entrepreneurial fight. From beach to yacht.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't ever want to present I personally don't want to present this, you know, the end result is a yacht. I just think that's pretty narrow-minded. So yeah, what do you think? When you're out there talking to entrepreneurs, I mean, you got the grit, right? And I love hearing about and seeing and appreciating people's grit, because typically when, you know, I'm hanging out with people and they're entrepreneurs, it's a relief to talk to people like you, because you're working really hard, but you're tired, and you present yourself to the world as an optimist, and, you know, you're constantly pitching your ideas and you have tons of energy behind it. But then when you shut the door and no one's watching, it's just like, you know, I'm tired. I got to manage energy. Where do I focus? What do I do? You know, so it's like, really, we're two different people, entrepreneurs are. And, you know, the more I meet entrepreneurs, the more I find that their public persona is just complete contrast to their, you know, no one's watching.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's true with, I'm not a big sports person, so don't even like pretend that that's a reality at all. You know, I watch the Super Bowl for the halftime show, and the rest of it, I really don't. And at halftime, I don't even watch that. I mean, I just don't care. But if you ever meet sports people, they're always that way. You know, they look so amazing, and then you get up close and there's scars everywhere and there's bruises everywhere, and you find out their shoulders killing them, but, you know, they're smiling in front of surfers were the worst, because these guys, I was always the poser kind of a surfer, because I just did it enough to get the chicks and to feel like I was cool. But you meet these guys that were hardcore, and you look at them and they've got slice marks all over their legs, and there's damage there, you know, and they come in from a set, and it's not like the movies where they run off in the sunset with Pamela Anderson. You know, they come in off a set after being out all day and they're wiped out. And so I think it's that whole story, is the reality of that. And to me, that's actually what makes it all sexy. Is because it really becomes about that person. Do you have Netflix, by the way? Do you have?
No, not right now. We always go on for a couple of years and then off for a couple of years.
There's a phenomenal show right now. It's an original series on Netflix called Chef's Table. and it's a six episode documentary they did on 6 of the world's top chefs. And it just shows it's kind of similar to what we're talking about, because it shows how prestigious they are. They've got their Michelin stars and all this junk, but it also shows them with their kids. It shows their struggles, their backstory. Is filmed unbelievably well, really cinematic. But I think that's what actually makes a story so much more engaging than just the superstar People magazine version of it. I don't, that's nice, whatever. But I think it's when you see the scars. I mean, I think of that surfer chick, and I don't know her name, the one who had her arm taken off. She was on Survivor afterwards or whatever. No, Amazing Race. She's cool because hers is a very obvious, she's paid a price for what she does, but she's still out there. And those stories to me are a lot cooler than, the guy who surfs one time and gets a medal and a championship and yay.
Yeah. Well, that's, that would be really cool to try to attract those types of people for interviews too. Cause during their prime, those types of celebrities, if you will, they're getting tons of PR but once they're out of the limelight, right? No one really thinks about them. So you take two or 3 years later, when they're not getting as many interviews, they may actually join us on a show. Yeah. So if we look at in pulling in, like I love that. And that's what I want to do with the vlog is I want to interview all different types of entrepreneurialism. I want to interview in the music industry and food industry and just all of these people who are creative, not necessarily through spinning up a $1 million business, but creative in all facets. So it'd be really cool to interview someone like that. So maybe we can get access to, we'll look for personalities like that, but I just put surfer lady for now. But
so we're gonna look for the has-beens and the wannabes.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Because
next week, Billy Vanilli is doing our music.
Well, those are the only people that'll be on our shows. So. But the bruises, so that's pretty cool. So from an imagery standpoint, showing someone with like a straight up black eye.
Yeah.
Like that'd be a good imagery for the show. Showing scars, things like that. So we just got to find someone who's willing to get punched in the face.
Exactly. My friend Zach said he'll do it.
Nice.
Zach's bowing down. He's got to go get his kids. So Zach, thanks for hanging out with us today. No, I think that's great. I mean, I picture like it could be I just picture that you could actually be really cool to shoot a series of images. Cause I would love to see a farmer with this incredible crop, but then you look down and the boots are covered in mud and there's tears in the overalls from being in the field. So, I mean, it's all these images you could show that unlike the People magazine version where they're all polished and they wear their best boots, these are actually real guys with struggles and but they've pushed through, they've persevered, they've survived, they've thrived. And so it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to really shoot that and actually capture a series of images. Too bad I don't know any photographers.
Well, you know what we need, Jack, since you are an amazing photographer, is we need a makeup artist, someone who like legitimately can make people look like they have black eyes and bruises and scars.
Right.
And we need to just do a whole set of different types of people, bring them in and bruise them up and take some incredible photos in different environments. And that would be some great photography.
Yeah.
Bruises and scars. So how do we communicate that then? So if that's the imagery, we can figure out how to set that up. But how do we communicate that? So, and again, it's like from a distance, they look so, perfect and shiny, but the closer you get, the more you see the bruises.
And I think that's why it's so important to ask, tell me about the last time you were afraid with the interviews, is because most of these guys, even the ones that have made it, you're never an entrepreneur once. I mean, most of these guys are not saying, well, I've made it. Some of them have.
Yeah.
But most of them are like, okay, what's the next thing? You know, I'm on this yacht, but now I see, or I'm on this island, and now I see that island. And I see something else on the horizon. I don't even know what it is yet, but I'm swimming towards it. So the confidence is always replaced immediately with that look you see of curiosity and fear and excitement and terror all at the same time. Rarely do you get to actually sit for very long with that completely content feeling, because it's part of being an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a restaurateur who opens up a restaurant and then you have this new idea, we're always in that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's capturing that sense of continual curiosity, continual exploration, whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
A lot
I
of
like
words.
that. Yeah. So here's what we're gonna do. It's 8:55. So I got to wrap up. We'll definitely focus on, or definitely start at 8 o'clock. We've got some good themes going. I'll take some notes. I love the idea of bruises and scars, entrepreneurial scars. So I'll think about over the next week a way to message that, and think about that as well. And then we'll look at some photography. It'd be great. Hopefully, if you get in town here in a couple of weeks, taking some photography of us, which I don't know how you're going to do that if you're the photographer, to use some photography for us too. I mean, I guess, you know what? I mean, it's Orlando. We should be able to find a makeup artist who can bruise us up, and to start with, just me and you, do a couple black eyes or something, or a good shiner, and get some photography of us too with a shiner or two. That'd be pretty funny. So maybe we can set that up here in the next couple of weeks. But so we got some themes, we got some good questions. I got some notes here. I'll tidy up these notes and shoot these over, and then next week we can start to the format, even though we're not gonna have segments yet, but we can do like a quick intro, even though we won't have a pitch yet, but we'll figure it out. So I'd say about next week we need to hone in on what the pitch is going to be, and just lock down the 3 segments. And if we do that by next week, we should be in good shape.
Yeah. Send me whatever I need to do and I'll work on it.
Score.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Have a good rest of the week. I'll keep you updated on this Orlando trip.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything yet, so just let me know when you hear something.
All right, sounds good.
All right, man. Out.